Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First, let's talk about the latest coming out of the country of France, how they're moving forward to create a legislation to ban hair discrimination. We'll talk about that and why they are doing it. Also, folks, let's get into the conversation about what's going to be happening right now here in the States, in the state of California today. California fast food workers are going to get a raise to $20 per hour. I'm going to ask the question, crew, should fast food workers get a raise all across the country? We want to hear your take on that. And later on, we check in with Dr. Bridget for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness with Dr. Bridget. Stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Happy Monday, folks. Happy Monday. I hope you had a safe, enjoyable, faithful, peaceful weekend, holiday weekend, and for Resurrection Sunday over the weekend. Some of you may have the day off today, and others may have to go back to work. I'm back to work. But I hope that you had some good time to reflect and, more importantly, spend some time with your family and those who are close to you for this special holiday weekend. And I appreciate y'all for tuning right back into the culture here on the Black Star Network. Folks, we are streaming live right now on a number of different platforms. First, make sure you check us out on our home platform at blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free. Follow us on social media at Black Star Network. And we would love to connect with you and have you as a donor and investor in our network. So just go to our website today where you can donate and you can give safely and securely online at blackstarnetwork.com. Also, folks, while you're online, make sure you follow me, yours truly, at The Real Farajii on IG. I would love to connect with y'all as we continue to build the community. So make sure y'all check me out at The Real Farajii on IG, as well as on Twitter, on the X platform, at Farajii there as well. Also, you can find us as we're streaming live on Amazon platforms. You can go to Amazon News on your Fire TV. We're also streaming on Amazon Prime Video. That's right, folks. Just find us on the Prime Video app under Live TV, The News, or find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, Live TV, The News. We're also streaming on the Freevee Network, where you can find us on now under News. Just check us out there at Black Star Network, as well as Plex TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can find us there on Plex TV under Black Star Network, or just find us under Live TV, The News, and Opinion. All right, folks, let's jump right into it. Big shout out to the online culture crew that's checking in from all across the country. There we go, folks. Folks are checking in, wanting to be a part of the conversation. And folks, if you're not familiar with the online culture crew, this is the fantastic group of watchers and supporters that we have since we started the show. And it's an opportunity for you to be involved in the conversation. So if you want to say something, jump on either Big Brother Roland Martin's Facebook page or his YouTube channel and jump in the chat there and be a part of the online culture crew. All right, let me just start the conversation looking at the situation in France, in the country of France, as they're looking forward to moving to ban hair discrimination. Yeah, folks. Black folks in France are saying, you know what? We need to do something about hair discrimination here as well. Of course, as we know that we've talked about it on this platform, the Crown Act, how that has been enacted in a number of different states, but it has not truly been enforced. And we saw in the latest situation out of Texas when the young man who was in the schools and then he got kicked out of school, he had to go to a lawsuit. I mean, he had to go through a court hearing, all of that just because he wanted to get his hair done and he wanted to wear locks and he wanted to style his locks a certain way. And that has caused a national conversation, reinvigorated the national conversation about hair discrimination in this country. So now we're seeing in this country of France of how they're moving forward with it. Look, I'm going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, I want to share with you more about the details about this, get your take on it, And let's talk a little bit about what's happening in the state of California. Fast food workers are going to get a raise starting today. So we'll have that conversation as well. So we still got a lot to cover in the first half of the culture right here on the Black Star Network. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. He stoked racial violence, attacked voting rights, and if reelected, vowed to be a dictator and, quote, get revenge. We can't go back. As president, I put money in pockets, creating millions of new jobs, and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Game on. State of the Union 2024. Huge night for President Joe Biden.
This was a CVS receipts type of night.
He dragged the hell out of the Supreme Court. And he said, y'all gonna see the power of women.
Trump's brain is melting as we speak.
We want to organize from a place of strength.
There's no confusion whatsoever about what they've done and what they plan to do.
What Donald Trump is doing is presenting a fallacy.
He is convincing them that he's all in it for them, when in fact he's all in it for himself.
We do not feel Joe Biden, in spite of the success that have taken place during this administration economically. There are too many things where we do not feel like he's had our back.
You should also be investing in the barbershops and the beauty salons and the hookah bars and the folks who are going to the club, and there's a way to actually get them registered because we've done it before. But if you don't have folks who understand that dynamic, then you're missing a big opportunity.
So we said we just celebrated. For what? Why don't you go to celebrate rather than recommit yourself to the fight if the very thing we went to celebrate has been gutted?
Republicans did not support a lot of the bills that were necessary to keep the country fluid. You can't only love your country when you win, right?
Oh, no. You guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut?
This was absolutely the knockdown, drag out that we were really waiting for.
Black voters are the base. They're the most important base of the Democratic Party. There was very few language in this speech. At the time, we see an attack on Black history, attack on DEI. The end of the BLM racial reckoning thing has come to a complete end because there was nothing in this speech for that.
Our movement has never been grounded in two-party politics in this country. All of our movements ultimately get co-opted by a state that is anti-Black.
They called the old because they knew the way, and they called the young because they were strong. And I believe there is a good combination of that, but we can have ideas and we can have visions and dreams, but we have to have our young people also working beside us because they are strong, and they will run that race, and they will run it to the end.
Activists, organizers, and young people have been pushing this administration to be on the right side of history and to do something about the issues that they care about.
While the Ukraine and Palestine are critical issues, they are not the only global issues.
Not a single Black person who should ever let it come out their mouth that I'm tired. Because there is somebody else who came before us who didn't stop fighting.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation as we kick it off with talking about what's happening in the country of France right now. France is just a little bit under the spotlight because they're moving forward on passing a bill to ban hair discrimination. And this is the same thing that we've been seeing, of course, in this country around the Crown Act and the the lack of enforcement and the I would say the kind of the wishy-washy interpretation of what this bill means, especially in areas like we saw in the state of Texas and other places. But France is saying that they're moving forward on this because they said they wanted to hope that the groundbreaking bill sends a message of support to Black people and others who have faced hostility in the workplace and beyond because of their hair. Can you believe that? This is happening in the state of France. Now, take a look at this. Here's a little bit of what we got from NBC News. So just the first paragraph talks about this, how the groundbreaking bill still sends this message of support. So they're standing in solidarity with Black folks in this country. But they're also saying while only 4 National Assembly's 577 lawmakers were on hand for the vote, they overwhelmingly backed the bill in a 44-2 vote. There were 4 abstentions. And what we're seeing here is something that could be a global movement of some sort, a global movement around this idea of making sure that the hair and more importantly, how Black people, how you know, our agency around our hair is protected and supported. And folks, as crazy as it sounds that in 2024, you have to have a law to wear the hair you want to wear to express yourself in certain spaces, especially in the workplace. I can't even wrap my mind around this whole idea that we are at this point in this country. But guess what? We are. We really are. And not just in this country, around the globe now. We really are. But the measures, according to the report, the measure is still facing a long road. It has to go to the Senate next, where it could face opposition in the France, the legislature, the state of the parliament, excuse me, where it has gotten to this place. But supporters of the measure outside of parliament were overjoyed that the bill made it to the legislative body. Now, according to people that were there for this vote in the city of Paris, they're saying that it's about time. Estelle Velos, who is a 43-year-old consultant getting her short coil haircut in a Paris salon, said, today we're going even further toward taking down these barriers of discrimination. Now, the essence of the bill, the details of the bill, still, well, this is interesting. The draft law echoes the similar legislation that is found here in the United States, in more than 20 United States, 20 states here in the country. This bill in France was proposed by Olivier Serva, who is a French lawmaker from the French Caribbean island of Guadeloupe. He said that if it eventually becomes law, it would make France the first country in the world to recognize discrimination on hair at a national level. Now, isn't that something? Isn't that something, y'all? He said this is a great step forward for our country. After the vote, France has done itself proud. Can you believe this? If France passes this bill nationwide, countrywide, they would be the first country in the world to recognize discrimination based on hair at a national level. Now, some of us, that says a lot. I'm going to be honest with y'all. That says a lot because here in the United States, we're the ones that kind of kicked it off. But we still don't have a national bill to protect this. So I want to get your take on this, crew members, and share your thoughts as we're talking about France, how they're moving forward to ban hair discrimination. What's your take on this? That we're still in this space, that we have to have all of these conversations and policies, and more importantly, the United States hasn't nationalized hair discrimination. It's happening again. 20 states in the country have the Crown Act, have some laws on the book against hair discrimination, but it's still not a national thing. But France could potentially be America in creating a bill against hair discrimination and being the first country to do so. All right, let me go to what y'all have to say. Stephanie Humphrey's channel, welcome back to the chat. It's always good to hear from you, Stephanie. You say, child, I have been wearing my hair just like I've wanted, and I am so very unconcerned about what anyone thinks of it, job included. Well, that's great. That's great, Stephanie. That is wonderful. And I'm glad that you feel empowered to do that. The problem is, and I don't know if you work for yourself, Stephanie, or if you work for someone else, or, your work situation. That's the real problem. That's the caveat, is how you express yourself in the workplace. Now, if you're working for yourself, obviously, that's one thing. But if you're working at a job, especially if you're in corporate America, there's still a lot of companies that have a problem with hair. The other part of it is that children being in certain school districts, again, going back to what happened in Texas, we're still seeing that level of discrimination at a very, very high stakes way. So we're in this situation, and now we got to think about all the complexities of it. But more importantly, maybe we need to advocate, like, why isn't America, as though we're moving forward on it, but there's potentially another country that can move even further and faster to getting this thing to a nationalized state. But Stephanie, I truly appreciate you. Thank you so much. Let me see this. Cindy D, my sister, thank you for checking in once again. You said, as a result, I bet companies will start laying off workers instead of stop buying back their stock and giving CEOs big pay raises. That might be it. That might be it. And you might be talking about the minimum wage piece. We're going to talk about that. But absolutely. Absolutely. Sean Ryan, thank you for checking in. You said what's crazy is that we have to make these laws to wear hair when we have the First Amendment already in place. That's a great point, Sean. Sean Ryan, that's a great point. That's crazy. That is very crazy. And it's even more crazier that we're not making a big deal about it. That's the craziest part about it. We have a First Amendment. You have the right to do all of these things to express yourself, the right to free speech, the right to personal freedoms, quote unquote. But then when it comes down to your hair, there's still got to be some politicizing and justifying and all of that stuff just for the follicles coming out of your scalp. As if the hair, this is the crazy part about it, y'all, as if the hair serves as a real threat. Just because you wear a certain type of hair does not mean that you are a threat. This is white fear 101. Look, I got to take another quick pause. When we come back, let's talk a little bit more about that. Plus, let's talk about what's happening in the state of California around fast food workers and minimum wage going up for them. Stay with me. That's up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. As president, I put money in pockets and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together.
I need you to scream for your new beginning. 5, 4, 3, 2. I need you to shout for it. I need you to shout for it. It won't always be like this. Sooner or later, it's gonna work in your brother's favor, in your sister's favor. They shall not die. They shall not die. They shall not die. I want you to embrace somebody and tell them welcome to the greatest season of your life. Hug somebody, welcome.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Talking a little bit about hair discrimination, how this country of France is moving forward to ban hair discrimination. The black lawmakers there saying that they were inspired. They're standing in support and solidarity with black folks in the country, in America, and they're moving forward on it. So far, the legislature has gone through one part of parliament, now has to face the Senate there. But there might be some difficulties, but right now, it's moving forward. If France is able to do this, they would become the first country to ban hair discrimination nationwide. If France is able to, if this piece of legislation moves through their Senate, this piece of legislation also encompasses a lot of the same provisions and protections that the American legislation of the Crown Act contains. So if they make it, if it goes through all the way on a national level, they will be the first country to do so on the globe. First country to do so, which is mind-blowing considering that, again, they were inspired by the Crown Act here in the country, here in America. And they're moving at a faster rate than we are. Oh my gosh. McCall, my sister, checking in. McCall, thank you for being a part of the conversation. You said the attack on our hair is as black people is a continual attack on our humanity. Absolutely. It's an attack on our humanity. It's an attack on our agency and our possession of our own body. It's an attack on our personal freedom and expression. It's an attack. It is an all-out attack. But black people in France, black lawmakers in France are saying, look, maybe we can get the ball running. And this goes to show us, folks, very quickly, because I want to make sure we get into this other conversation. This goes to show us that what we do in America, the culture and the trends in America, and I'm speaking of black culture, black trends in America, affects how everything else moves around the world. Don't take yourself too short. Don't make yourself seem like you real small, like, oh, nobody's watching, nobody cares, nobody. No, what we do in America dictates the agenda culturally and in other cases. But culturally, we are leading the charge, black people in America. And we see this with this particular piece of legislation. And certainly, we're going to keep you up to date about this, but wanted to at least bring this to your attention. All right, let's go to the second piece of the conversation. Looking at what's happening, let's come and take from France. Let's take a flight back home. Take a PJ over to across the water. Let's head over to California, where we are talking about what's happening here in the state of California, where there is a new $20 minimum wage law for fast food workers here in California. And guess what? It started today, folks. It is starting today. This new law is scheduled to kick in, giving more financial security to a profession that has often and historically been a low-paying profession. Let me share with you the latest from AP News on this. Take a look at this, folks, as we talk about California. It said Democrats in the state legislature passed the law last year in part as an acknowledgement that many of the more than 500,000 people who work in fast food restaurants are not teenagers, earning some spending money, but adults working to support their families. And I can attest to that here in Los Angeles. Over the past decade, California has doubled its minimum wage for most workers to $16 per hour. A big concern over that time was whether the increase would cause some workers to lose their jobs as employers' expenses increase. I can tell you right now, here in LA, if I know my people from LA, Karen, Tiz, and the folks that are in California, y'all know, you pull up to any fast food restaurant, I don't care if it's a Chick-fil-A, a Del Taco, whatever the case may be, you're not getting some teenager, 16, 17-year-old or 18-year-old teenager or 20. No, you're getting a 30, 40-year-old individual, right? And they're not always in managerial positions. They are there to do a job. And when you think about the cost of living, when you think about just all of the expenses that it takes for just life, not just life in California, just life, car, gas, you're talking about food, if you got children, all of those things. Guess what? this is happening. This is happening, and you're confronted with this, especially if you have come as an immigrant. It's even harder. It's more of an uphill battle. So we're seeing something different here in the state of California. My question is to y'all, crew members, is should there be an increase for fast food workers? Should fast food workers get paid more money? That's my question. If we need to have a conversation, because maybe some of these low-paying professions, and maybe in these low-paying professions where a lot of folks are, where you have what they call working poor or low-income workers checking in, who are part of these sectors, right? They get paid at livable wage. We're talking about a livable wage. We're not talking about $40, $50, $60, $100. We're talking about livable wages here, folks. I remember years ago back in Baltimore, man, when we was having conversations about $15 an hour, right? This was years ago. We were putting that conversation in the context of livable wage. And it was still being pushed back against. People still resisted. But we're talking about a livable wage, $20 an hour. Some of us might think, oh man, $20 for a fast food worker. Fast food is just a business, just like a lot of other places, right? And maybe we need to shift the cultural attitude that we have of this particular industry. Let me hear what y'all got to say on this. Sean Ryan, you said $20 isn't a livable wage in Cali. I'm just being nice, Sean. I mean, California is expensive. California is expensive. Lori Park, thank you, Sean. Lori, you said the last time the federal government, by government minimum wage that was put into law was in July of 2009, excuse me. $7.25 per hour. That's the last time it was changed. Let me tell you something, Lori. I've seen that too. And I know in some states that minimum wage, when I saw that some states still have minimum wage at $7.25, I thought to myself, what decade? What decade? You saying based on the law of 2009, and that wasn't even a decent wage in 2009. Can you imagine now 15 years later with inflation, the cost of living, and all of these things that have gone up? Can you imagine making $7.25? Can you imagine a grown-ass adult getting paid $7.25 or $10? And that does, I mean, some of us might say, well, it's based on the job. Again, this could lead to, if a fast food worker is getting $20, maybe then that will bump up everything else. But I know, there's so many complexities and factors and all of that, that this seems a little bit like, but there are a lot of people, again, 500,000 fast food workers who are adults in the state of California. There are a lot of people who are, whether they're immigrants or not, that rely on that level, that profession, to feed them and themselves and their family. Yep. Let me see here really quickly. Let's do this. Let's take another quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue the conversation, get more of your thoughts as we talk about this. Should fast food workers get paid more, as a new law in California allowing fast food workers to get $20 an hour starting today? And I wonder, do you think it's going to at least upgrade or change the game a little bit economically for folks? Stay with us. That conversation continues on the other side here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
I have something I want to tell you. I am running for president.
Of the United States? Holy.
I'm paving the road for a lot of other people looking like me to get elected.
Brooklyn's first black representative.
You're about to make history.
You want to be president? You ain't no man.
Maybe we should find your mother. All you got is your one vote.
You sound just like every other politician.
Do I look like every other politician?
Truly You can't win.
And why can't I win? I have an opportunity to make a difference.
This isn't a campaign. It's a joke. The only thing anybody's going to remember is that there were a bunch of black folks who made fools of themselves.
See too much suffering. And I don't know how to not try.
We're living it proud.
I don't think I'm special. I just want to remind people what's possible.
We need something that's going to make some noise.
The Black Panthers and Shirley Chisholm. It's like thunder and lightning. I'm going to force all the politicians to be held accountable.
You're gonna do all that. School teacher from Brooklyn.
Harriet was just a slave. Rosa was just a domestic. What is it you do for a living again? The people of America are watching us.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. We're talking about California's new law that takes effect today, a new law that where fast food workers are earning $20 an hour. And we want to get your take on it. Should fast food workers, and I'm asking this question, should fast food workers get paid more? I want to get your take on this as we have this conversation. And so many of you are checking in from around the country because y'all are bear witnessing that California is not cheap. I can tell you that right now. California is not cheap. But California isn't the only state that's not cheap. We're starting to see a rise in the cost of living around the country, especially in states and in cities where a lot of Black folks are. You know, whether you're talking about California, whether you're talking about Texas, where a lot of our people are down in Houston, you're talking about down in Atlanta, Georgia. A lot of our folks that are in New York City has checked in today and say, look, man, New York is expensive too. So a lot of where our people are, and most of our people, there is a lot of concern about this. Let me just share with you what y'all are saying. Pretty Brown Mimi 726, my sister, thank you for checking in. You said the cost of living in Florida is high, Farajii. So I know in California it's even higher. $20 an hour is like $50,000 a year. Pay all essential workers much more than that. Right. Essential workers need to be paid more. I agree with you there on that one, Pretty Brown Meme. Thank you so much for checking in. Let me see. Ming Lee Natasha Serge, you said, why is it just California? Why isn't this nationwide on your side? I like how you put that. I don't know how it's not nationwide. People are fighting against $15 an hour now. If you think about it now, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, if $15, if it was $7.25, we jump up to $15 now. Look how long that took to get from a $7.25 minimum wage to $15 an hour. That means that $15 an hour would need to really change to $20 within the next couple of years, 25, maybe 30. But you're talking about cities and states where lawmakers don't deem this to be important. That's what we're essentially talking about. We're talking about that. Cindy D, you say people live off those jobs. They are single women, men, and married couples have to have two jobs to survive. That's the problem. Should be an increase for everyone, Farajii. Cindy D, I could not agree with you more. And that's what I'm saying. Look, we think that it's just teenagers. Man, it's not just about teenagers anymore. This is about adults, grown folk, right? Grown men and women who are just trying. And look, again, I don't want us to look down on, because some of us have a tendency to say, oh, man, well, they just fast food workers, blah, blah, blah. They just working in the food industry. The food industry in general has always suffered. You know what I mean? I remember years ago, I used to work in the restaurant industry. I was a busboy, then I was a server. And people are, the culture then versus the culture now, in terms of tips, in terms of deals, I mean, now it's much harder. It is much harder in the food industry to get money. And I'm talking about those sit-down type of restaurants. Now, fast food workers, Matt, look how long it took the industry to even get to this place in the state of California. And like Ming said, now we got to look at this thing nationwide. And it's going to be a real problem. Let me just pull up a couple of other things before we take our next pause here very quickly. Now, a couple of you, I think, Cindy, you made the point that the industry is not happy with some things. And that is true. In this piece from the Associated Press, they interviewed an owner of 10 Auntie Anne's Pretzels and Cinnabon restaurants in the San Francisco Bay Area. His name is Alex Johnson. He said his sales have slowed in 2024, prompting him to lay off his office staff and rely on his parents to help him with payroll and human resources. He said increasing his employee wages will cost him about $470,000 each year. He will have to raise prices anywhere from 5% to 15% at his stores, and he is no longer hiring or seeking to open new locations in California. He said he tries to do right by his employees. He pays them as much as he can. But he said, but this law is really hitting our operations hard. I have to consider selling and even closing my business. The profit margin has become too slim when you factor in all the other expenses that are also going up. So from that side of the conversation, where you have a business owner, a restaurant, a fast food restaurant owner, who's looking at these, he's like, I need to make some decisions and make some different choices. Make some choices. So I don't know, will this $20 an hour cause a decline in hiring, because we're finding that, like Alex Johnson and others who own like, you know, some of these restaurants, that they can't afford it. The expenses are too high. And some people are saying, like, this is going to be a real burden for the industry. Now, the Restaurant and Food Association here in the state of California, they have agreed to this, but it's coming down to those franchise owners. And when those franchise owners have to do their budgets and figure it all out, like Alex Johnson, it's going to be a hard decision. It's going to be a lot of red tapes and red lines on that budget. So we're going to have to see. We're going to have to see. I'm for giving people more money, especially if you work hard, if you do this day in and day out. In some of these restaurants, if you've never been to LA or in some San Fran or any other city in the state of California, these restaurants don't close at 9 o'clock. We got McDonald's that opens till literally 24 hours. Some of them close 2 and 3 in the morning. So if you're putting all this time in, you want to get your money's worth. More importantly, you taking time all away from your family. You want to come home with a decent check. I get it. I understand it. And I think it's the right thing to do. Now we got to see if the other industries fall in line. Look, I got to take another quick pause when we come forward. Let's switch gears, talk about health and wellness with Dr. Bridget on the other side. Stay tuned. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. He stoked racial violence, attacked voting rights, and if reelected, vowed to be a dictator and, quote, get revenge. We can't go back. As president, I put money in pockets, creating millions of new jobs, and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Terry and I, we couldn't play in the white clubs in Minnesota. It felt like such a, strength through adversity type moment that I think Black people just have to go through. We have to figure it out.
Right.
We make lemons out of lemonade. But there's a reason we rented a ballroom, did our own show, promoted it, got like 1,500 people to come out. Clubs were sitting empty. They were like, "Where's everybody at?" And I said, "They're down watching the band you wouldn't hire." So it taught us not only that we had the talent of musicians, but we also had to have the talent of entrepreneurship. It wasn't like a seat at the table. It's like, no, let's build the table.
That's right.
We got to build the table. And,
That's right.
And that was the thing. And of course, after that, we got all kinds of offers.
Of course.
Right, to come play in the clubs. But we didn't do it.
You're like, no, we good.
No, we're good. We're good. And that's what put us on a path of national. And of course, when Prince made it, then it was like, okay, we see it can be done.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. We've been having some very, very important and interesting discussions in the first half of the show, talking about everything from what's been happening in the country of France as they're looking to ban hair discrimination to what's happening here in the state of California as fast food workers are getting a raise to $20 an hour based on, as a result of a new bill that kicks off today. So we want you to continue to join us in those conversations, and we'll keep you posted about the developments of all of those stories. But as we do that, folks, make sure you stay tuned because in a few moments, we're going to be checking in with Dr. Bridget for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness. But I wanted to let you know, again, that we're streaming on a number of different platforms. You can check us out on our home platform at blackstarnetwork.com. Just go to our website today, download the app for free at Black Star Network. And we ask that you follow us on social media as well. And we ask that you become an investor and a donor to the work that we're doing. We would love to have you as a donor, an investor, as a stakeholder, just someone who will financially support us because your support means all the world to us. So you can just go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com and support us. And we thank you for your love. All right, folks, now let's check in with Dr. Bridget, who is our family physician, cannabis expert, author, and for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness with Dr. Bridget. Good afternoon, Dr. Bridget. How are you?
Hello, Farajii. How are you today?
I am well. Thank you as always. Did you have a good weekend? Did you and the girls y'all spend some good quality time together?
Yeah, it's it changes as they get older, but we did some enough for change.
I like how you put that. You think they didn't really want to hang out with me that much. Okay.
It is, but I drove all the way to Pittsburgh to see my daughter in college, and it's just it changes, and I'm sure a lot of the parents on here, understand. I used to do a bunny walk with them. We put on bunny ears and walk around the neighborhood every Easter morning, and these are grown folks. They're not looking. They don't want to wear the ears.
No more bunny walks.
I know, but it was fun.
No more bunny walk. Hey, Doc, I wanted to get your take on this before we jump into what do you think of fast food workers getting more money? You think that's just livable wage. In the state of California, they're getting $20 an hour. Do you think that should be like a nationwide thing?
So first of all, I don't think everybody's the same, obviously, when you're working in a fast food establishment. And I don't think all fast food establishments are the same. Okay. So let's start there. There are people that are working there that aren't necessarily being advanced, but this is their way of life. This is how they are feeding their family. And I do think that an adequate wage is appropriate. Okay. But you have teenagers where this is their first job, shouldn't necessarily be getting paid what a 50-year-old who really might have had a hard time in life, and now they're back on their feet and this is what they're doing, you know? And I realize sometimes it's hard to say you should pay someone differently based on their experiences, but everyone's bringing something different to the table. So, in America, you should be able to work maybe 1.5 jobs and make a living, but we're so far from that now. It's even
crazy.
No, it's not even.
It's really crazy. And you know what, Doc? Maybe at some point, I don't know when, we should have a conversation about the toll that has taken on all of us, our minds, our bodies, our health and welfare, because it is crazy. Like, if you got to get 3 jobs just to make it through the day, or just to make it through the, over a 2-week period, something is inherently wrong.
Something is wrong.
Something is really wrong. 2 jobs, it's kind of 2 jobs even pushing it.
Depends on what the 2 jobs are, right?
Depending on what the 2 jobs are. I get it. Right. So I get it. And everybody's not going to work in their passion. So I understand that part too.
Right.
But once you start kicking off 3 jobs, or, on the weekends I do this, during Monday through Friday I do this, and then at night, during the weeknights, I'm doing this. And it's like, damn, bro, like, it's getting to be too much.
It's too much. And honestly, who's raising the kids? And the kids can't raise themselves. Okay. And so if you have to do this, and no one's putting blame on the person that's working the 2 or 3 jobs, God bless the fact that you have the wherewithal to provide for your family. But who's raising the kids? Who's looking after the grandparents? Who's looking after you? If you have that. And it makes for an unhealthy society.
Absolutely. All right. We're going to take another quick pause. When we come forward, Doc, let's talk a little bit about this FDA approval of this new drug. And we're going to talk about that and so much more. We got Dr. Bridget, y'all. That's right. We got Dr. Bridget this week. So make sure y'all stay tuned for Reclaim Your Wellness here on The Culture on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. As president, I put money in pockets and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money make this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
All right, peace and welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation as we are now in our segment, Reclaiming Your Wellness with Dr. Bridget, and she is joining us once again. And she always joins us on Mondays, folks, at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure y'all tune in and get ready for your questions as we have these conversations. All right, Doc, let's talk a little bit about a new drug that the FDA has approved, but fatal conditions show that doctors call it a ticking time bomb. This is something that is, the initials are PAH, the pulmonary arterial hypertension.
Yes.
And you brought this to my attention. You said, look, we should talk about this. And I was like, I've never heard of this, obviously, because I'm not a doctor, but you know what these things that are coming up over the horizon. Why do we need to talk about this FDA approval? And more importantly, why do we need to talk about PAH?
So PAH, which is pulmonary arterial hypertension, is basically, as we all know, with hypertension, it's a raising of the blood pressure in the pulmonary system. So basically, the blood is being blocked that goes through your lungs, which is going to raise the blood pressure within the lungs, which ultimately raises the work of the heart. So the heart is now having to pump harder, to pump the blood through these narrowed arteries, as many times happens with hypertension. And then over time, the heart loses its ability to pump throughout your body. Now, the reason why this is important is because it can be a devastating disease, often leaving people on oxygen, loss of their quality of life. But 55% of PAH patients are African American. And so I felt it was something that we needed to talk about because many times this is not a commonplace term. And though it's not, it is definitely the more extensive part of the disease, it is still something that can affect so many.
Yeah.
The people that tend to get this tend to have like sometimes a congenital heart disease, but a connective tissue disease, but just coronary artery disease, atherosclerosis, high cholesterol in your arteries. They just have high blood pressure, period. Cirrhosis is another one. We have liver disease. And people that have just chronic lung diseases like emphysema, COPD. So you can see that you're starting off on one end with one disorder. And then because of the increased pressure and the narrowing of the arteries in the lungs, you end up with this, which can be devastating. So this new drug supposedly is supposed to really make a difference for people. And some patients have considered it a miracle drug. So worth discussing.
So what do you, let me just throw out some data very quickly. PAH affects about 500 to 1,000 Americans each year, often women between the ages of 30 and 60. Now, this is according to the American Lung Association. So what do you, like, how does a person find out whether they have PAH? Because this is a serious situation. In the story that was noted that CNN wrote about this drug, they highlighted a woman named Katrina Berry who was diagnosed with PAH at the age of 25. She's a white woman at the age of 25 was diagnosed with this, but they told her, don't Google it. Don't Google it because you're not going to find much information about this. So how does a person get to that point of even being diagnosed and, more importantly, learning more information about what condition they have?
Absolutely. So first of all, you're probably starting with one of these other conditions that I mentioned. And so you might be getting a blood test that's showing blood clots. It might show extensive stress on your heart. And so we're looking at, why is your heart so stressed? Why is it working so much? Or you have severe anemia for an extensive period of time. But the gold standard as far as how you diagnose this is that when they're looking at everything and nothing seems to make sense, we end up doing a heart catheterization, more going towards the right side of the heart, and then they're being able to see the pressure is increased in the vessels going towards the lungs when they're doing this heart catheterization.
So can doctors pick up on this, or do you need to go to a specialist for this?
I would assume, just like from working in the hospitals, I think most of the time when I was coming across it, the patient was already with the specialist. So meaning I had a patient that had difficult to treat high blood pressure, or that I was sending them to another specialist for connective tissue disease, rheumatology, what have you. So I think it ends up being diagnosed typically by the specialist, because someone that may have disorders that the primary internal medicine or family physician might be dealing with, but they've progressed so far along that now they're seeing specialists, and that's when we see this pop up.
So how is it that Black folks in this country, we are diagnosed at such a high rate?
I think a lot of it may have to do with that we don't get the adequate medical care. So like I said, a lot of people get COPD or emphysema, but are we getting the medical care to control it? A lot of people, people across America might be having coronary artery disease, but are we getting the treatment and the medications to control it? So then we go back into the disparities of being Black in America and getting adequate health care that's affordable, that we can, and being treated fairly within the health system, not being dismissed, saying, oh, I'm giving you oxygen, you're doing fine, you just think you're short of breath. It's difficult being in the medical space, knowing what I see. And sometimes I'm not saying these conversations are direct, but I know how things happen. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know how things are dismissed or misconstrued. It takes the art of medicine to be able to listen to someone who might explain things differently.
Yeah.
To understand what that means in a medical context. So different ages, different experiences, and the anxiety that you have coming into the office. When I'm meeting someone, I have to take into consideration who you are, where you're coming from. And when you explain things, if I don't understand it the way that I typically understand it, I have to ask the questions until we're both meeting in the middle.
Yeah.
When you're doing 7-minute visits, you don't have time to meet in the middle. And so people end up getting misdiagnosed. They get quick diagnoses. Okay, we'll come back in 2 weeks, because they're running behind with their schedule and they're going to get in trouble with the office or, what have you. They're exhausted from, being on call all night. The system is broken, is basically what I'm saying. Now, there are some people that I believe aren't meant to be in medicine, because you have to be unbiased and you have to be caring and you have to want to help people. And there's some people that got into the space that aren't like that. But I do believe, and this is one of our first conversations, when I first met you, Farajii, a lot of physicians leave medicine because they're burnt out.
Right.
Okay? And I make no excuse for it, but I do blame the system. I don't blame any physician or any one health system, that if you are pushing people to their limit, they are not going to do the job that they were meant to do. And you add in a racist, biased, sexist culture, and now you're running through people so quickly, you're not giving them the time they need to get to the right diagnosis and to get the right treatment.
Wow. Look, we got to take another quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation about PAH with Dr. Bridget. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. He stoked racial violence, attacked voting rights, and if reelected, vowed to be a dictator and, quote, get revenge. We can't go back. As president, I put money in pockets, creating millions of new jobs, and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney, and if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation as we've been talking about a new FDA drug that has been approved that has its impact or is trying to improve the condition for PAH patients. This is pulmonary arterial hypertension, which is a condition that affects the lungs within your system. And Dr. Bridget is joining us today for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness. And as we talk about this particular drug, talking about the condition, and more importantly, the impact that it has on Black America. And Doc, I'm going back to that piece of data that you shared with us earlier. You said that 55% of patients that have been diagnosed with PAH, pulmonary arterial hypertension, are Black folks. And a lot of that is because of pre-existing conditions, things that we already we find ourselves already having because of lifestyle, or whether it's because of smoking or whatever the case may be. But then once we get one set of one particular disease or one issue, then this comes along and this worsens the condition. So seeing the chain reaction, and more importantly, seeing how all of this is working together, does this drug, is it something that Black America needs to really consider, or do we still kind of want to wait and see how this thing will play out since it was just approved by the FDA?
Well, the fact of the matter is there's not really a whole lot of waiting and seeing with pulmonary arterial hypertension, that usually people live 2 to 3 years after the time of their diagnosis. So I'm not going to even suggest waiting and seeing. And the fact of the matter is this is a very new approach to treating PAH, and it's the first thing that seems promising in quite some time for PAH. So yeah, I understand there are things that, I don't get the new iPhone when it comes out, I wait. There are some things you can wait on. There are some things that you cannot. Okay. And something like this, I would start asking questions. If you have any of the conditions that I mentioned earlier, that if you have noticed that you're having more difficult with breathing, that your test results as far as your cardiac studies are worsening instead of getting better, this is something you're going to want to ask about. And so the name of the drug, and if you follow, I butcher terms constantly, but know who you are. But the Winrevair is the new medication, and it's a biological drug that actually grabs the proteins, the activins that are overproduced in PAH. And so those activins are what is making the cell wall grow and thicken and narrow. And so this drug, actually, it's an injection, actually grabs those proteins so that we can start going the opposite way. The gold standard right now for PAH as far as treatment is actually Coumadin or warfarin, because it thins the blood. But of course, when you're on blood thinners, there's a whole nother set of issues that people have to deal with. And so it's exciting to see good research that is developing drugs that can literally give someone their life back. Like I said, a 2 to 3 year prognosis is never good, right? And so I'm excited about it. I thought it was worth talking about, and maybe empowering our audience to go in and ask questions.
And it's called now you got me.
Winrevair, right?
Winrevair. There we go. Little
Or not. I might be totally butchering it, but that's how I say it. Yes.
That's fine, but it's just the fact that you're having a conversation, like you're talking to your primary care physician and say, "Look, I heard about this on the culture. Give me some more details. How will this particularly help?" I know all drugs have side effects. So what are some of the big side effects of Winrevair that we need to be aware of?
Well, when it's attacking the lungs like this, there are a list, and we've had this conversation before with medications that can have, a laundry list of side effects that are longer than we many times would like to not deal with. But because of how it's affecting the lungs, people sometimes will have headaches, nosebleeds. Some people might end up with a rash. Because of the tiny blood vessels, you might have like a spider vein appearance on your skin. Of course, diarrhea, redness, dizziness. There's always a laundry list of complications. The one thing I want people to know about that, there are the complications or adverse side effects that are most common, and then it goes down to less than 10%, and then it goes down to less than 5 or 2%. So keep in mind, when we talk about this laundry list of side effects, it might be up to 70 different side effects. This is based on the research that has occurred. Not all things are the most common, okay? Don't let anyone ever dismiss you with the side effect. And if someone immediately says, "Oh, that doesn't happen with that," ask them to look it up. And you know what? Nowadays you can look it up yourself, and ask, is this a side effect? And just because it happens in less than 2% does not mean it doesn't happen to you. So don't let people talk you out of what you're feeling. And honestly, that leads even to our second conversation. But let me say, don't let people talk you out of what is true.
Absolutely. And Winrevair, how can folks, is this something that's over the counter, or is this something, how will this be administered?
No, it's an injection that it comes in, I believe, 2 different doses. And like I said, you'll go into your primary care, you'll go into your specialist, have a conversation about your cardiac disease, about your lung disease, and make sure that have one conversation about PAH. Have one conversation saying, "I heard about it. What is the likelihood of me getting this? Am I on that road? These are the things I'm experiencing," and kind of go from there.
That's what I'm talking about. This is why we need to have you on, because stuff like this comes out and we need to have at least some conversation about it and get some insight from it. So I truly appreciate you for bringing this to our attention, Doc. And I know that there's going to be a lot more conversation, but even more importantly, just to talk about PAH and talking about that condition, where a lot of our folks may not even know that this is something that is a serious thing. As doctors have said, it's a ticking time bomb. And so to have these conversations are very, very important, to say the least.
So let me at least say, I want people to have an understanding of what to look for, not just yourself, but your loved ones, right? So, and this is why I think it's important, because I had a conversation with a friend the other day. There are symptoms that you might be experiencing that you might be associating to some condition. It might be related to something else. Okay. So that's why self-diagnosis is dangerous, because you might be chalking it up to one thing and it's actually related to another. But if you're having shortness of breath, if you have fatigue, swelling, now who does this? Sounds like a lot. Everyone, at least I know at some age point or another, right? If they're having dizziness, chest pain, heart palpitations, if their lips and fingers turn blue, or they complain about them being super cold, and they're having issues with coughing, they don't have to have all of those. But if they're having some of those and they have some of these other conditions that I mentioned, go in and have a conversation.
There it is right there. And if necessary, get 2 or 3 different opinions.
I always welcome a second opinion. It's nothing on me for you to take care of yourself. And so if you have a doctor that gets an attitude and it hurts their ego that you want a second opinion, then that's not your doctor. Because I never feel threatened if someone wants a second opinion, let's do that. Because you have to feel comfortable. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But you have to feel comfortable. And it's my job to make sure you're comfortable. And let's bring in some friends and let them take a look at it. And if I'm wrong, God bless the fact that you knew something wasn't right. And if I am right, that's just what I do. But don't let anyone talk you out of a second opinion because of their ego.
There it is right there. All right, we got to take another quick pause. When we come back, let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about sexual assault and abuse. Considering there's so much about this in the news, from everything from the latest situation with the allegations against Diddy to even that documentary about Nickelodeon, Quiet on the Set, sexual assault and abuse is back at the forefront. It's a conversation that we don't want to have, and it's a conversation we're going to have here with Dr. Bridget. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. As president, I put money in pockets and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Also joined by our chief physician here, Dr. Bridget Cole-Williams, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness. And as we talk about all of these health and wellness topics, folks, we want to always keep you informed. But this one is a very, very sensitive topic. So I encourage you to make sure that, you know, as we have these things, we're not trying to trigger anyone or anything like that, but trust and believe that we want you to be in the best shape possible mentally and just in the best shape emotionally. But there is a lot of conversation, and I brought this to Doc, that we always talking about different topics. But I brought this up to Doc because I said, Doc, we need to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Because we're hearing so many things about sexual assault, sexual abuse, sexual, like sex trafficking, sex violations and things. But the great concern that I have about this is that folks within our time, maybe it's the culture, maybe it's who's involved, but it doesn't seem like it is an important topic that we're seeing people literally making mockery of being victims, victim blaming. And this is something that I'm seeing, especially in the conversation about Diddy and the allegations against him. But then I watched that Nickelodeon, and I only watched a couple episodes, and I was like, wait a minute, this is getting too deep now. This is getting too much. That new documentary about Nickelodeon called Quiet on the Set, and they were talking about just those individuals who've been working in Hollywood and abusing the young stars of Nickelodeon back in the early 2000s. And to hear some of their stories, the story that really really resonated with me was the story of Drake Bell, who was on the major show, Drake and Josh. And he's a grown man, got a wife and has moved on, but he details his experience of being sexually abused by the dialogue coach that he worked with, Brian Peck, that led to Brian Peck being arrested, but only serving a couple of months in prison for essentially sexually assaulting a 14-year-old, or in that time, 15-year-old boy. And I wanted to have this because I'm like, are we taking this thing seriously? Like in America, it feels harder and harder to be a victim. Mm-hmm. That when you are a victim, people put the blame on you. When you are a victim, there is so many questions that you have to answer before somebody, quote unquote, believe your story. So first, I want to kind of get your take on this. Where do you see this conversation? And I know we have sometimes you have some of the biggest names in Hollywood that are involved in these stories, or the biggest names in entertainment or politics or whatever. But how do you see this situation as a family physician? Do you come up against, do you have clients or rather patients that that come to you because of this type of stuff, or what?
Absolutely. No, I respect how you opened up this conversation because it can be incredibly triggering for people. This is the ongoing saga that we started with the Me Too movement in Hollywood. Now we're hitting the music industry. We need, as much as I hate seeing it and it turns my stomach, we actually need more of this. But the problem is that we bring this up, people get paid off, they, face the allegations. Some people may go to jail or prison, what have you, but we never get to the core. The core is the victim, and the core is what is going on in society that sexual assault is never about sex. It's about power. And what are we doing about men that are seeing themselves in power, or sometimes not powerful enough or powerless, and use themselves in a way to assault women? The one thing that keeps running through my mind is that if men are supposed to be our protectors and our providers, how are they allowed to be the person that does the assault? What is going on in society that allows that to happen? We're kind of putting everybody on blast, and then the story goes away. We shame them in public, the story goes away. They reinvent themselves somehow, they come back. But we're not talking enough about healing broken people that find that sexual assault makes them feel more powerful. That is the problem that we need to fix.
And just want to let everyone know, April is National Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And I will say the number one resources, or the number one resource to get more information about this, is the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, which is nsvrc.org. This is the 23rd year, Dr. Bridget, that NSVRC is celebrating, or at least, acknowledging April as being Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And it's the perfect time for us to have some different conversations about, like you mentioned, victimhood. It's the perfect time for us to have some different conversations about healing.
Mm-hmm.
But how is it that it seems to be, as much as there has been a lot of work around this, there's been a lot of talk around this, I don't know whether it's just because of hip hop culture. I don't know if it's because of popular culture, but it's often the voices of those who are hurt the most have become minimized. And I'm going back to what I saw in this Nickelodeon documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Drake Bell, when he finally arrested his abuser, Brian Peck, a white man who was working in Hollywood for many years, he had 41 different letters of support from people within the industry, some of your famous actors at that time. This is because he got arrested in 2003. 41 letters of support to try to influence the judge to give him leniency, even though he literally raped a boy. There's evidence. And in that particular case, he did a full-blown confession over the phone without being coerced, but talking to this boy, to Drake Bell at the time. It was all recorded. He did a full-blown confession. And you still got people who are like, no, he would have never done that. He's a good man, blah, 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 all of these things. And, even when we have this conversation around Diddy, and it's like, we don't know who people are. And I'm not trying to create fear.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know the capacity or the like you said, the power that people yearn for and crave for to make them other than themselves. They essentially become like this monster, right? And it's like we really put so much scrutiny on the victims. And when I was listening to Drake Bell's story, like when I saw this video or saw this doc, and I was just like, there were people who didn't even believe him.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't believe him because his abuser was a well-known, influential individual. Same thing we see with Cassie and all of these other folks.
Mm-hmm.
People don't believe, he would never do that. How do you know?
Right. The fact of the matter is, you can get 41 letters of support because most people never know the dark side of you. Okay. And so these people were willing to write a letter saying the person that I know, well, is great and does this and volunteers, but you don't know what people may be struggling with. And I'm sure I like to think that those letters were sincere and were truthful for who they knew. But you also, if you are not an ally if you are complicit. Okay. You are not a friend if you're saying, hey, look, if this is what you're struggling with, we can work on this. Okay. Because these people are doing something very coarse, and they are sometimes, whether you want to see them as being troubled or misguided, but whatever it may be, we need to stop the assailant from misusing the power that they have, and that letting them know this does not make you more powerful. This is a weakness. This is subversive and grotesque what these people are doing. And we're not doing that work. We just kind of throw them away, and eventually they come back and, they look different, they act different. But, remember, it used to be if a celebrity did something in the news, they went to rehab. They're not even going to rehab anymore.
Right.
We don't even say that anymore. People are literally, if they pay it off, or they go to jail for some period of time. But we used to at least say, oh, they went to rehab to work on this, that, and we're not even doing that anymore. We need to put the energy and the money into changing how these people are thinking. And if you are a friend, and they're doing this, and Diddy got a lot of folks that knew what he was doing, you can't be supportive of any women in your life if you're complicit with this behavior.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%. Well, look, we got to take our next pause. And on the other side, we're going to continue the conversation. It's April is Sexual Awareness Sexual Abuse Awareness Month. Who else checked in that said this? The Stephanie Humphrey channel, you said, thank you for highlighting this, Brother Farajii and Dr. Bridget. April is also Child Abuse Prevention Month. So you have two big issues
same vein.
in the same month. We're going to continue to talk about this on the other side. Stay with us, folks. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
As bad as Trump was, his economy was worse, and Black America felt it the most. He cut health insurance while giving tax breaks to the wealthy and big business. As president, I put money in pockets and capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. There's a lot more to do, but we can do it together.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by Dr. Bridget for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness, as April marks the official 23rd anniversary of Sexual Assault Awareness Month. This is the month that was started by the National Sexual Violence Resource Center 23 years ago. And it is a month where there should be different conversations had about sexual assault in this country, about how we can empower victims to speak up, about how we can hold people accountable, those abusers and perpetrators, and more importantly, how we can change the conversation about ending sexual violence in this country. Dr. Bridget, from a medical professional like yourself, right, what are some of the things that we need to start to either look for, or what are some of the things that we need to start to do to at least change the conversation about sexual violence?
So number one, I just want to bring up some numbers so that people have an understanding that 1 in 4 women have experienced some form of rape. 1 in 3 women have experienced sexual harassment in a public place. So there is no one that is not touched by this in some way, okay? And the way to move the needle, I think, on this, number one, is to empower girls and women to trust their instinct. In this culture, we've created a rape culture in America. And we have taught women to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. We have taught that. We have taught women to not rely on their instincts of this is not an okay situation, because now you're the whiner and you're the complainer and you're being, uppity, and why don't you want to do this and come along with. It is not okay to be uncomfortable. Do not forget your instincts. They will not fail you. Okay. And so number one, it's really teaching women and girls to believe in their own sense of self and that they have value. Okay. With men, like I said, if they're supposed to be the protector, why do we allow them to be the violator? Okay. And men need to learn, what does power mean? What is it? And we need to have more men doing the rewiring and the retraining of men. Because a woman coming into that situation is not going to be the same effect as a man saying, dude, what are you doing?
Right.
And there's another way of going. And so we need to empower good men to rewire these men of power. I suspect there's a lot of horrible situations that go along with the Hollywood industry, the music industry. And I'm curious, where are we going to be, hitting next? And so we need to be able to take these individuals. Listen, 12-year-old girls, 14, they should not be flying across the country without their parents.
Yeah.
And you hear story over and over again that some stars, some producer, some manager says, hey, mom, I'm going to protect your daughter, and they whisk her away in hopes that they become the star that can bring the money home, that their daughter lives their dreams. We need to be more protective of our youth. And if we see bad behavior, because you don't go from 0 to 100 like that. That type of behavior is inching in little by little before something happens. That needs to be cut off. We have a very toxic, over-sexualized music industry that allows young girls to be in this situation, okay? We need to start taking care of our own. And this is not a rap issue. This is white, black, this is all across the board. I can go through a list of people of every genre that have, had accusations. We need to teach. If we have been powerless, and many times in the Black community, let me go back to this. If we have been in a country where we've been seen as powerless, and many times Black men their power has been taken, and they've had to be subjected to being less than to be in white America, many times people that are not well guided, when they get power, they abuse that power because they don't know how to manage. We need to be better mentors for our men and for our women, for that matter. We need to have better guidance. And when you have a bad apple, that bad apple is going to make all the other apples bad too in the barrel.
Absolutely.
Need good guidance for incredible, talented people that have been given an opportunity, but they abuse that opportunity because they didn't have good guidance.
Or that they abuse that opportunity, Doc, because the culture in which they grew up in is not open to for their voices to be heard, right? You know what I mean? Like when you're talking about that 12-year-old girl or 14-year-old girl or something, and I've heard grown-ass men and women say this, well, what was she doing? Doing in the room, or what was she doing talking to him, or what was she doing? Why did and it's like, wait a minute, hold up, y'all. Hold up. Think back to when you were 12 and 14. And did you think everything through? I know I didn't.
No.
Did you consider, did you say, oh, you know what, this celebrity, even though they're rich and famous, but there's a possibility that this celebrity can hurt me. Right. We don't talk about celebrities that way. We accept the fact that if you're on TV, if you're in the news, if people see you in a favorable light in a public way, right, that you're safe. When in reality, that's not the case. Not safe. We always, for some reason, Doc, in our culture, we associate being celebrity and famous with goodness. Oh, right. This person must be a great person, otherwise they wouldn't be. And that's not the case.
It's not the case. The fact of the matter is we need to teach women and teach everyone, what does abuse look like and what tactics are used. Because a lot of times women don't come forward because they don't even comprehend what they experienced as abuse, sometimes until they actually get older. So when they say, oh, why did it take you so long? Sometimes they blame themselves. Sometimes they deny the fact that they were uncomfortable, that they just ignore all the signs that they know inside were wrong. But these list of, I'm going to just say characters might be using tactics such as flattery, which is obvious, but manipulation,
Yep.
gaslighting, humiliation, threats beyond just physical force in putting women in these situations. So it's not always obvious, particularly if you come from a broken environment. You might be used to gaslighting and some level of manipulation and what have you, and you just happen to be talented and you're trying to get out of that situation, but you tend to always go towards what you know. Okay. And so if you are used to some manipulation at home, and sometimes these parents can be very manipulative to try to get their kids to be a star.
Yep.
Then when you're meeting someone who is a star and is a celebrity and they show signs of manipulation, you don't recognize that this is an abusive situation.
Yeah.
Now, so keep in mind, Casey was 19 and Diddy was 37 when they met. She was young. She was trying to, create a life.
Yeah.
You see him as, like you said, celebrity is good. She didn't even comprehend the level of abuse that she was experiencing until she started to get older.
Right. And that makes a world of difference on it. Robin Welch, Robin, you checked in and say law enforcement and firemen are protected by their own, even in the political realm. People in positions where we are supposed to trust them take advantage of the vulnerable and get away with it. Unfortunately, we're seeing that being the case day in and day out, Robin. Thank you so much for posting that. The Stephanie Humphrey channel. Stephanie, you said, I agree, Dr. Bridget, women need education and guidance as well. And I couldn't agree more. And I'm going to throw in there, Stephanie and Doc, men
100.
be, as you mentioned, men need to be one of the top advocates of making sure that sexual violence does not happen for girls and for women. Like, we need to be out there on the forefront. And this is something that is near and dear to my heart because, I've heard just so many stories and everything. And I'm just like, now that you're a parent, I'm a parent and I have both. I have a son, I have a daughter. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, they're going into a world where this could potentially happen. God forbid it does. But, and I'm sure with you, Doc, and with your daughters, you think about, like, what industry are you going into and what kind of people you hanging around and all. Like, there's so much worry. And I'm just not liking the type of conversation that Black folks are having right now about this. Like, this victimhood, we make so many jokes. We laugh at people. We make mockery of people. We just do all of these things, all manner of just ill will. And then, like, I'm looking at this Diddy situation. Are we having very real conversations about this? And I'm going to continue to hammer the hell out of this thing. Like, this is not even about him as an individual. It's about the system. It's about, and I'm not talking about the system of white supremacy. I'm talking about the system of abuse, the system of enabling, where we see because of somebody is rich and famous, the system of enabling of not seeing something. I was just reading this piece yesterday very quickly, and it was talking about willful ignorance. And there was a story about, just in general, willful ignorance. And basically, when people refuse to listen to the consequences of their actions because they don't want to be held accountable for making somebody else feel bad, or they don't want to be held accountable for a situation. And they said that 40% of people who took this survey have admitted to being willfully ignorant of a number of things that happen in this country. 40%.
Yeah.
I think they did a test of about 6,000 adults. If 40% of people are just remove themselves and say, look, I can put something out there, but I don't want to know the impact that it has on people. Think about that. That we're positioning, and are we putting ourselves and our children in harm's way because we choose not to see, or we choose not to understand, to truly understand that our actions cause consequences, or our actions has ramifications and implications. That are we choosing to be willfully ignorant about certain issues? Like, we don't want to see it. No, it couldn't happen. No, I mean, Now you're talking to us.
Right.
Some of us might say, oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously I stay next to my children. But think about how many Black people in this country, think about families, think about, go through a community, a Black community on an average day, on a warm day. See how many children are out there and see how many parents are there. See how many girls walk into the store by themselves.
Right. And you don't want to create a situation of fear, but the fact of the matter is we need to, but you know what? If mom and dad are working 3 jobs, what are we doing? Do you see what I'm saying? And so we need to empower our girls. We need to have the same, philosophy. If you see something, say something. We should feel safe in our own community with our own people.
That's right.
If you are a man and you are not acting as a protector in your community, of your family, of your siblings, of the lady next door, that is a man.
Yeah.
And if your friend is oh Lord, I was about to say something wrong, but is that dude? Say something. If someone is coming to you and gossiping about, oh, this happened at this party and can you believe it? The next question is, and what did you do about it? Because you're just as bad if you don't do something. Say something. Yeah. Break up the situation. Make sure that girl is in a safe situation. And sometimes you know better than she does. Get her out of that situation.
And this happens to boys too.
It does. It really does.
It happens to boys. And from the stories that I've read, Doc, and I know we don't have time to go into it, but all this month, God willing, we're going to dedicate some more time to having this discussion. Men are raped, boys are molested and sexually abused, and it does a world of damage to boys and that grow up into men who become either perpetrators. They become, they end up with high suicide rates. I mean, the impact is just heart-wrenching. It is absolutely heart-wrenching. Doc, we're going to put a pause right here, and we're not going to stop the conversation, but we'll just pause it for the interest of time. Folks, I would advise, if you want to get more details about this, there is a national sexual assault hotline that's available 24 hours a day. Take a look at 1-800-656-4673. 1-800-656-4673. This is the National Sexual Assault Hotline, confidential, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, provides support for those who have been abused or who have become victims of sexual assault, sexual abuse, sexual violence. And as all this month, God willing, we're going to do our part to continue to hammer home the importance of this. And we need to change the conversation, the culture, the behavior, and protect those who have been victimized so much. So, Doc, I truly appreciate you for kicking us off this month and, more importantly, bringing us up to speed on that FDA-approved drug and medication for PAH. And God willing, we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Always. Thank you, Farajii.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. I thank each and every one of you for checking in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, go do your due justice. Make sure you go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free. Follow us on social media at Black Star Network. And more importantly, put something in the pot. If you're enjoying what you heard, the content that we're providing each and every day, make sure you do your due justice, be an investor and stakeholder in this movement that we call Black Star Network. Also, follow me on social media at The Real Farajii on Instagram, as well on the X platform at Farajii, and I would love to connect with you there. Stay tuned. Up next, 6 p.m. Eastern Time is Roland Martin Unfiltered. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture, right here, only here on the Black Star Network. Talk to you soon. Peace.